So let's get to the first one. How does commission work when selling my home? We get this question probably every couple weeks, and it's a fairly simple answer, but things have changed in the past year or so with the new lawsuit or the new class action settlement, whatever you want to call it. So the way that it used to work, if you understand that way, meaning if you met with a real estate agent, you agreed on a lump commission. It could be anywhere from a dollar to 7% of the sale price. So really, there's no set commission. You can negotiate anything that you want. In the old days, you would negotiate one number, let's call it 5% for simple numbers. And then what normally happened is the listing agent and the listing broker would agree to split that commission with the buyer broker or the buyer agent who brought the buyer to the deal. Sometimes that commission is split 50-50. Most of the time, that commission is split a little bit more in favor of the listing agent because there are considerably more expenses that the listing agent needs to cover. There's advertising, there's signage, there's lockbox, there's photos, there's media, there's a lot more on the listing side than there is on the buy side. So, in the event of maybe a 5% listing, it may have been common to see like 3% go to the listing agent and 2% go to the buying agent. That's the old way to do it. It doesn't work that way anymore. The way that it works now is the listing agreement that you are going to sign. You will only agree to compensate your listing agent, which is going to be anywhere from $1 to 7%, depending on what that agent is going to do. Now, what you should be optimizing for this commission is that every agent that you hire is going to put your home in the MLS, unless you're, dealing with an agent that believes that off market is the way to go, or private listing club, or any of the stuff that doesn't get exposure, right? And it's not wrong for everybody. It's not right for everybody. It's just another way to sell your home. But assume that most real estate agents, 9 out of 10, are going to put your home in the multiple listing service. That costs us nothing other than our dues and what it costs for us to be real estate agents to do that. So there's no expense in taking everything that they need about your home and putting that into the MLS. Now there's photos, there's media, there's tours, there's a lot of expense in that. But the actual cost to put your home in the MLS is zero. So you should never hire a real estate agent and justify the commission based on your home being in the MLS. We're all going to do that. It's all included. We call that, of course, marketing. Everybody does it. You don't need to worry about that. The things that you should be focused on, and I'll make a separate video in the future on this, is there's really four types of buyers out there. There's active buyers we know, like your agent. There's active buyers we don't know. There's passive buyers we know, which are, people are in our CRM. And there's passive buyers we don't know. Those four types of buyers should have a marketing plan with your real estate agent. They should have a specific marketing plan of how they're going to attack every type of those buyers. Based on what they're going to do in that marketing plan is how you're going to justify the commission that they charge. So if somebody's just going to put photos up and I can give you guys some hacks without like ruffling too many feathers of how you can research if agents are running ads or not. But if they're just going to take, professional photography and put it on the MLS and not run any level of media, then I don't think that they're probably worthy of a commission that you're probably used to paying. So that's the first part. In the agreement, you're going to agree to a specific commission that is only due to the listing broker. Let's talk about the second part. An offer is going to come in, from a buyer, and probably 99 out of 100 offers that you'll receive. I hope you receive 100 offers. But my point in saying this is the 99% will be represented by a real estate agent. And with that contract, that is going to come an additional commission addendum, or as part of the contract, of how much the commission the buyer's agent is requesting the seller to pay. And I know what you're thinking, like, well, wait a second, that's like kind of the same thing as before. And the answer is yes, it kind of is. It's just part of the negotiation now. So the thought is that when people have to negotiate it, pricing may come down a little bit because most people are afraid to negotiate their own money. I think what I've seen is that really the numbers haven't really changed. But above and beyond that, the buyer agent or the buyer broker needs to sign we are legally required to sign an agreement with our buying client. Similar to a listing agreement with the seller, we need a buyer broker agreement with the buyer. And on that agreement states how much we are charging for the services to represent them as their buyer. Now, if I agree to work with a buyer, and let's say that commission for easy numbers is 1% or 2% or 3%, whatever the number is, there is no standard. If I find out that the seller was willing to pay more than the amount that I agreed to sign with my buyer, myself as a real estate agent, I cannot take the difference. So if I agree to a 2% commission with my buyer and I find out that the listing would have easily contributed 3% towards my commission, that extra 1 point I can credit to my buyer, maybe towards their closing costs or a home warranty or a rate buy down or something like that. But I cannot take that as commissionable income. I can only take up to the amount that I agreed that I would charge my buyer, no matter who pays it. So let's take that a step further. Let's say that you agree to 3% to work with your real estate agent on the buyer side. It's totally like uh, that would be a normal number. Anywhere between 2 and 3, I think, is relatively common. What you're seeing in the market, again, there's no fixed number. The agents don't get together and say like everybody charge this number, or that doesn't happen. Um, so you're going to negotiate that number with your agent. In the event of, let's say it's 3%, because that's a higher number. You go to negotiate the offer, and the listing agent and the seller say, "Hey, we'll agree to pay the commission, but we're not going to pay 3%. We're only going to pay 2." Now there's a 1% difference. There's two things that can happen right now. Number one, the agent can come back to you and say, okay, well, great news. You and I agreed to 3%. I got 2% of that covered. And the difference, the 1%, is going to be allocated towards a closing cost when we go to closing, and you're responsible for the other part of that commission. The other thing that could happen for whatever reason is they negotiate what that number could be, meaning like I don't expect you to pay the entire 1% as a closing cost, but we can split the difference in half, and we'll add a 0.5% at closing. Or what could happen is they could just say, hey, we're going to agree to this percentage on the buyer broker, but between you and I'm only going to accept what the seller is willing to pay. That way you're not paying for any of my services. We'll put that all in the negotiation. Here's the deal. All the money's the same. Doesn't matter who pays it. It comes out of the proceeds of the sale, right? So if we're like, it could gross up, right? So if you're buying $1 million home and the seller agrees to pay for 2%, you're still paying for $1 million home. If you've got to pay that extra 1%, which would be 10,000, you would be buying a $1,010,000 home. Everything pretty much comes on, or not pretty much, everything is on the HUD statement. It's on either the seller side or the buyer side. So you could make the argument that really all this was a paperwork change, and it kind of convoluted the negotiation process. I think long term we'll find that it was a good thing. But right now, from a dollars in versus dollars out perspective, there's not really a whole lot of difference. It's just a lot of difference in regards to how we handle it and how it's negotiated. It's much more transparent now, which I totally agree with. I think everything should be 100% transparent. That way people know that the level of service and the type of deal that they're getting. So just remember, as a seller, you're negotiating on the listing contract the commission only due to the listing agent. The buyer will negotiate their commission only due from the buyer's agent. And when the two parties come together and they negotiate a deal, then the commission from the buyer's agent is negotiated how much the seller is willing to contribute to that buyer's agent commission, and how much the buyer is willing to pay the difference, if there is any, when that happens. If I had to pull 10 random transactions right now and look at their closing paperwork, which we can't do, right? So this is more of a just kind of like what I'm seeing in the market. I would be willing to venture that 9 if out of 10, if not maybe even 10 out of 10, are just paying all of the buyer broker commission because of competition. Because keep in mind, if you agree, if you negotiate the buyer commission, that is a negotiable point that could cancel a deal, and over a few $1,000s here and there. I think most sellers aren't willing to do that, but that definitely does happen, especially in the upper end. There are commission negotiations. That is very common. So my thought to you, or my suggestion to you, would be to look at the services that are being provided. Ask yourself a simple question: is my home being marketed better than it would just be on Zillow and the MLS with this agent? Do they have a track record of doing this, and can they demonstrate that they know how to do this? And if the answer is yes, then I think it's totally okay to commission is worth its weight in gold for the right agent. Like, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I can tell you with 1,000% certainty, I wouldn't even talk about myself. There are some amazing real estate agents out there that are worth every penny in the world. They're in every market. And there are some that do a really, really good job. They're not great. They're not bad. And then there are some that are, I don't even want to say they're brand new, but maybe they don't do a great job. So it's your job, to interview these agents and figure out, like, where does this person sit? And is this a good reflection of what I want when I'm selling my home?